Hi, this is Phil Nevin with the San Francisco Giants. You're listening to Out of Left Field with the Grilling Truth.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Out of Left Field. Happy Memorial Day to you. Hope it was a safe and long 3-day weekend. Hope that everybody took a little bit of time to reflect on what the weekend is supposed to be. Chris, happy birthday. We are 2 bleeping years old, man. Can you believe people are still putting up with us?
I can't believe people are listening to us in the first place.
Hell, Rizzo couldn't make it for 2 years, sir. My apologies, Captain.
I'm not really sure that I can trust any of our listeners' taste. They listen to you on such a regular basis.
But see, I appreciate their thirst for righteous knowledge, and I also appreciate the fact that they allow you to tag along to kind of have your fun, but they also put the responsibility on me to actually drop the true knowledge onto you during the show. It's a big responsibility for me that I take very seriously. So from all of us to you, thank you all for a fun and successful 2 years, and hopefully many more of those to come, probably with Chris, just so that you all know.
Still waving your gums.
The jowls are flapping. See, that's why we still haven't gone to video yet. There are some things. We value you all so much.
There are some things the world should not see.
Exactly. I don't have I need to get the camera a little bit further away, but to do that, I need a bigger screen anyway. As we move on, I don't want you to see the gray that Chris so rudely points out whenever I see him. Which, by the way, it's getting a little long on the sides here from the buzz, and I can see the gray every morning. It's disheartening. What can I say? I mean, it's there, but it's gray. So, as we put the ball into play, a guy with a good hairline, really good speed, and unfortunately, a really bum knee just happened up here in Beantown. Ronald Acuna, the rookie for the Atlanta Braves, had himself what is, I think, the closest akin to a Bryce Harper moment. And we say that in a way of, remembering last year what happened after the rainy day in Washington, where Harper slipped on the first base bag running out a ground ball in the infield. Basically, we thought he had absolutely destroyed every single piece of tissue in his knee. Luckily, did not. Same thing with Acuna. A very odd step as he comes across first base, trying to basically tell the umpire, hey, I beat the play. He was safe. He goes tumbling, sprains his AC. Sprains his ACL. We'll go to the 10-day DL. And again, a very fortunate turn of events for the Atlanta Braves as a kid who is, I think, quickly becoming the face of that ball club. Is Dansby Swanson still, we're seeing some better production from him this year. A team that was in both of our top fives last week. We'll get into those coming up here in just a little bit today on the show. But a young kid who really seems to be grabbing into Hotlanta and becoming the new young face of a team who is right now has a veteran cornerstone of Freddie Freeman. Hard to believe Freddie Freeman's been in the league that long, but a 20-year-old, man, you mentioned this before the show began. You never run the same way. The speed's going to be there, but will this really affect him long-term in his hopefully decade-plus long career?
I mean, is it going to be one of those injuries that changes fundamentally how he plays or how he runs? No. But I guarantee you it's going to change some of the things that he does consciously, which can affect, are you going to book it down the first baseline every time? Yes. Are you going to book it down the first baseline now with this thought in your mind? Okay, now I got to be careful as I come across the bag. My spike sticks in the dirt. And let's be honest, if you just let the umpire do his job and not,
Yeah, I mean, in trying to call himself safe and sell the play, he kind of he turned his body a little bit, which probably kind of led to the odd spike placement. And this is one of those things that in kind of difference from the Harper injury, nothing that, Major League Baseball can do to prevent this. It was just one of those freak, we've seen pitchers get their spike stuck and balk. In this case, he gets his spike stuck and messes his knee up. It wasn't one of those things where, the issue comes into question that we had about, the bag. Should we go back to the old canvas bags instead of the kind of plastic synthetic that they have on top of the ones now? Acuna said through an interpreter, I feel better than I did yesterday. I just thank God it wasn't worse than it was. Coming from Mark Bowman of MLB.com, he said after being evaluated on Monday, Acuna arrived at SunTrust Park and began lobbying to play a few hours later in the second game of a doubleheader against the Mets. So that is one of those things that you really, really like to see.
Yeah, one of the best parts about this was that after the injury, after the trainer came out, he was actually able to get up and walk off the field under his own momentum. He was able to carry his own weight off the field. He was being supported a little bit, but he was more or less, under his own power. So, and that's a really good sign in a knee injury.
And skipper Brian Snitker said, I thought his season was over when I went out there. And just to give you an idea of how, I guess, well-placed the fear was in that moment, Acuna said, quote, when it first happened, it felt like I wasn't going to be able to walk. My leg was hurting. Right after that, I felt a little woozy and nauseous, close quote. Yeah, that is the idea of, complete shock. Your body's just going into damage control. And actually, ironically enough, as we said this, and we didn't get too deep into the article there, but Acuna actually did make a small comparison to Harper, saying, basically, I know it was similar to what happened. I don't know if he walked off on his own power, but thankfully I was able to. Certainly looks positive for the Braves. It's odd, man, and I'm not going to get too deep into the standings and our top 5, bottom 3 just yet. But normally, when something like this happens with the Braves ball club, it's one of those things of, okay, they can take their time, young talent, not a big. No, they need to be careful, but they can't really afford to take their time right now when they are still doing their best to stay on top of that National League East, and hold off of what we expect to be a surging Nationals team and a Phillies team who is surprising all of us this year. It's one of those. It's a different dynamic than what we're used to out of that ball club, because we've become so accustomed to them just being one of the bottom feeders in the East, right, that if someone gets hurt, like Freddie Freeman, take your time. Hey, Matt Adams is having a great year. Why don't you go try playing third? Like, who the hell cared? Now it's BS. We're in this for a pennant race. Let's go.
Right.
And it's interesting.
You got to think that a lot of that cutesy stuff is going to go away as we progress through into June and July. And if they're still in competition and contention for the top slot in that division, which I have no reason to believe they shouldn't be by the All-Star break, this is a team that's going to need all hands on deck to get that done and to stay on top of that division with a Nationals team that by all rights should be surging back at that point.
Right. And you mentioned this, obviously Max Scherzer once again leading in wins, likely going to be, I think, a good chance for him to be the National League Cy Young winner. Obviously, as we near the All-Star break here in the next couple of months, we will get into our mid-season awards and kind of where we see everything going. You already gave me a great hot take on that, which I don't want to spoil it. When you want to drop it, go ahead. But it's going to be a fun one when it comes time for the talk Cy Young, and especially in the American League. I hope everything stays on point so that when it comes time for that, it comes on in. Again, guys, we are part of the Grueling Truth Network. It's Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham. So happy to be with you on this, now Tuesday after Memorial Day. Obviously, I know a day busy for you, but somber as well. I believe it was one female out of your unit that you didn't get a chance to bring home when you guys came back. So I know a very somber day of remembrance for you. Obviously, you don't need just a day. Your arm is covered in some really fantastic ink to the Soldiers. Was it Soldiers Cross? I think is what it is.
Battlefield Crossing.
Yeah, Battlefield Cross with the helmet and the boots and the upside down M16 or M4, depending on which one you go with. So. Again, hope you guys really again had an enjoyable day. Don't forget, check out thegruelingtruth.net. All your up-to-date football stories. It's 100 days until football, which means we got 100 days until you and I start working to once again finish third and fourth in the damn fantasy league.
True.
Back-to-back years, you and I have done the same freaking thing, man. We played the last week, and it's like, I don't really care.
Nobody cares.
I'll play a kicker. Whatever. But, yeah, plenty of stuff coming up there. A ton of good new baseball stuff between the Red Sox, obviously stuff with the Cincinnati Reds.
Speaking of fantasy,
Uh-oh.
I do have sad news.
Well, I know how your week began to go in baseball with a couple of for one, Tyler Chatwood.
He did it twice, by the way.
Yeah, he did not have the greatest day.
Porcello.
Yeah,
I did. The unbeaten streak is over. I am now 7-1 in fantasy in our first 8 weeks. I have a little bit of a comfortable lead. I feel like I can probably float this lead for a week or two, but it's going to be rough, man. Those guys can't pitch like that anymore.
Scheduled podcast. No one cares. Just say it. It's okay. It's okay. You're right. No. It's. I apologize for even mentioning the word fantasy, and I apologize again for when we bring up our fantasy football teams. It's just going to happen. It's our podcast, and we appreciate y'all listening. But hey, you know what? You're tuning in for our goofiness. It's going to be what it's going to be. Speaking of Rick Porcello and those Beantown Red Sox, they finally get a big shot in the arm as I think what really no one can debate anymore at this point, the heartbeat of that ball club in the laser show, Dustin Pedroia finally putting that number 1-5 back into the Fenway Park batters boxes. He had a knee surgery in the offseason, has been out since the beginning of the year. The 08 MVP finally has a chance to come in. He went 0 for 4 against the Braves on that and Saturday. I believe that was the game where Acuna injured himself, but a standing ovation from the crowd. I mean, he is, he was always the guy sitting right behind, or I guess right next to Big Papi when he destroyed the heck out of that phone, if you happen to recall.
Right. Yeah.
Since shards of
wasn't there a cooler too?
Well, he's gone through many things, but he had one. He just went off on the dugout phone, and the plastic covering, like it just sent shards of plastic flying. And unfortunately, Pedroia is kind of like you and I, more so like me. He doesn't have much in the way of protection and covering on top of that dome. So yeah, I mean, he was susceptible. I mean, he could have gotten tetanus.
Yeah. You can almost hear the manager in there going, no, I didn't want to make a call to the bullpen or anything. I don't go, whatever it is you're going to do.
When that happened, man, Pedroia looked at him like, what the bleep you doing? It was funny seeing a guy who's that small look like he was about to get 10 feet tall and go put a can of whoop-what on Big Papi. But, man, this is big. I mean, it's the Sox, again, we kind of keep going back to our stats, and we're going to get to that here in just a couple of minutes after this segment and the next one, which kind of takes us and keeps us in Boston. But they're still sitting, I wouldn't say comfortable. I mean, they're 2 games up on the Yankees right now. They are in first place. Spoiler alert. Red Sox still one of the best teams. Have 2 of the best players in the game right now, Mookie Betts and JD Martinez. But this is a big shot in the arm. I mean, they need him back. He even admitted a little bit of nervousness coming back into the clubhouse. But this is a guy who you look at him and think, man, what are you nervous? I mean, this is your house, dude. I mean, you walk in here, there is always going to be deference and respect when the laser show walks into the room.
Yeah, and to be honest, he's far removed from his MVP year 2008, but he's still the type of player that is a perennial all-star. He hasn't made the all-star game in a while, but he's that kind of player, still hitting in the 290, still a career 300 hitter. And you can only think that having him in the lineup is going to make the other guys more dangerous, because now you can't just go around those guys. You're going to have Pedroia in there. They're going to have to pitch to Benintendi. They're going to have to pitch to Betts. They're going to have to pitch to JD Martinez, because those guys are going to be near each other in the lineup, and you can't walk one to get to another because they're all dangerous.
And Cora actually had him batting sixth, which is, Pedroia was usually a number two guy. But I think at the same time, granted, yeah, you have a new skipper here. But Cora, obviously, along in the tooth, I believe played for the Red Sox. I'm not even sure if they played together when Cora was still actually in the big leagues. But it's one of those things that, Pedroia knows his place in the world right now, and that's not a bad thing. But he knows kind of where he. Oddly enough, Cora played in Boston from 2006 until 2008, which I do believe Pedroia was already there. So this is one of those.
Those are actually Pedroia's first 3 years in the league.
Yeah. So ironically enough, he's being managed by a former veteran teammate of his. So I think it's
by a teammate who was his teammate for his MVP performance in 2008.
Yeah. So I think this is a good thing, because Cora knows him. He's kind of seen him. Granted, he saw him grow kind of from afar, but he also kind of came into his own. Rookie of the year in 2007, and then won MVP in 2008. So he's been there for two obviously really big moments in Pedroia's career. Saw him grow. So there's going to be, I think, a good rapport there, a mutual respect. So this is one of those things that sometimes veterans come back and it can cause friction and a rift, because they have an expectation of where they're going to be, and then the new skipper or the front office regime is like, yeah, we see something different. I think this is a moment where, he sees, Pedroia sees the writing on the wall. He's getting up there in age. They have a great team. He's got a chance to get another ring. And I have to ask it because it's what we do in sports media. Pedroia, HOFer?
Career 300 guy, career OPS 807. Right now, I don't see it.
Really?
He's a great ball player.
Definitely will be in the Sox ring. No question of him being there.
He's had a great career, but nothing really sort of jumps out except for one of our favorite stats, his strikeout to walk ratio. His career strikeout to walk ratio, he's 652 strikeouts to 623 walks. That's nearly 1-to-1 on his career.
200 hits shy of 2,000, 140 homers. He's one of those guys who, he played the game really well. This will sound odd, but I think he might be one of those guys who, if he makes it, and you look at, at how well, he played the position very well defensively, but this might be a guy who makes it in at the end of the day on the laurels of his leather. His bat is good, but he is not a power guy.
No, but he is a great
Altuve. But yeah, I really think he could make it in if the writers really pay him the respect of what his leather was in the middle of that diamond. I know it's odd. It's kind of away from your traditional thinking, but I think it's possible.
But let's be honest, we're living in a world where the Baseball Writers Association of America has not yet voted Fred McGriff into the Hall of Fame. So,
sure. Well, that's because we don't write enough. See, we need to start writing more articles, then they can give us a vote. Because no one will get to the Hall of Fame without our say-so. How about that?
Do you think that – I know this is a little off topic, but do you think that if Fred McGriff had those 7 more home runs and was in the 500 club, that he would be a shoo-in? It's 7 home runs.
I think it's one of those things where if there's the rumor swirl of PEDs around him, which, I mean, you don't have anything that substantiates any sort of veracity of those accusations. That small number of dingers, which he could have gotten in probably 20 games, should not be the difference between him having, a place in Cooperstown. It's a travesty.
Unfortunately, that's kind of
the committee puts him in, but I think it's absolute junk.
Unfortunately, that's kind of the scuttlebutt that it's because he's at 493 and not 500, and they want to see those big numbers. I think it's kind of garbage, but
he was one of the best first basemen of the 90s to me. I mean, granted, I grew up watching him, and he would flip time with Ryan Klesko, but the Braves, Klesko ended up kind of being more of a right fielder for a time until he went to, I believe, San Diego. But I mean, Crime Dog was just, there was just something like watching, he was kind of a string bean, and watching him walk in that box as a lefty, he stood kind of similar to a Griffey, very tall, very lanky, had much more of a very, straight kind of vertical sort of stance. He didn't get too low, but man, watching him swing that stick and his ability to really play around first base in the 90s when the game was evolving. It had to evolve to try and save itself. To me, he will always be one of my favorite players of all time. Because as a kid, Crime Dog is just kind of a cool nickname. It makes you enjoy it. He was a damn good player.
So, interestingly enough, the return of Dustin Pedroia actually causes an issue with Boston's 25-man roster. And so you would think, let's send someone down, right? Let's move a rookie or someone. Let's send them down. The last thing I think you or I expected was for the Boston Red Sox to say, what we're going to do instead of moving somebody around, we're just going to DFA Hanley Ramirez.
Yeah, does that not make sense?
No.
I when you sent me that, I was just like, wait, what? I understand that Hanley's not. There's a feeling, I think, to a point that Hanley kind of, stole a pretty good chunk of money. He's been overpaid for quite a while. Hasn't touched 300 since 2013. But he's been, 283 and 286. 2 out of those 5 years, still not too shabby. His home run totals. I think the biggest question you have is, kid at 30 dingers in 2016, played 147 games. He's a guy who, for as many years as he's been in the league, he's been oft injured. You look at you have 4 seasons under 100 games, played in 44 this year. But when you're a guy hitting 254 with 6 dingers, 7 doubles, 29 driven in on a team that is surrounded by guys you mentioned, Benintendi, J.D. Martinez, Mookie Betts.
Mitch Moreland.
Yeah, and I think that's where kind of the difficulty comes in here is that you're paying – they're still paying Hanley through next year. He's owed $22.7 this year and $22 as a vesting option next year. So what I wonder is if cutting him now, I wonder how much that actually saves them. I wonder if, how much it saves them on the books for next year. You're already on the hook, but man, you looked at those numbers, and Mitch Moreland might be a better offensive option there than Hanley.
But if somebody picks Hanley Ramirez up and can take the bulk of that contract, then this does make a lot of sense because you got Mitch Moreland, who is lighting up the world and plays a good first base, and doesn't cost what Hanley Ramirez costs. Mitch Moreland's scheduled to make 6.5 this year. So, right. You're talking a third of what Hanley Ramirez costs. And, he's hitting 317 with an OPS of 1027. the guy's just raking right now.
Yeah.
I think this is a good move. I feel bad for Hanley Ramirez because he's kind of been sort of a steady piece on that team for the last few years. He's been a guy that you just say, yeah, I mean, we're going to start this game and Hanley Ramirez is going to be standing on first. And I don't know. I like it.
Well, and I mean, we saw him move a little bit into the DH role at times this year. But I guess my question to you, and I'm kind of racking my brain going through some different spots, but I don't know where he'll really fit in.
Well, it would have to be an American League team. He can't play every day.
Yeah, right.
He DH'd more last year than he played first. Played in 133 games. So it has to be somewhere in the American League. The guy's got to be able to DH. But I don't know who can afford it.
Well, and I think the question at that point would become how much is Boston willing to hold on to?
Right.
I mean, I think one of the things, the team that you kind of would go to, well, maybe this one would be a team like the Indians, who can kind of use that power to their advantage. But you have Encarnacion, and Yonder Alonso is pretty much sitting kind of pat where Hanley is. And it doesn't really make sense to bring in Hanley just to kind of get the same thing for a lot more money. I'm trying to kind of scratch my brain thinking of a contender who could use him, and I'm just not sure. The only one that I know sounds kind of weird, that could potentially make a smidge of sense due to the injuries that we have seen plague them at this position, could be the Yankees, actually. Because Greg Bird, we see, hurt a lot. Neil Walker's hitting .217 with 2 homers as the starting first baseman. Hanley could make a legitimate, logical add for the Yanks as someone who can kind of, you can pick up for Stanton if you got to put Stanton in the field and you want him to DH, or he can play a little bit of that first base in place of Neil Walker and Greg Bird, who we never really know how long he's going to be, out.
Here's the problem, though, is Greg Bird is back now, and he's playing pretty darn well. He went, let's see, his third game back, he went 2 for 4 with a home run off.
How long has he been back? I mean,
he's been back 3 games.
Okay, so I knew it had to be recent because the last time I had kept up with the Yanks, he was still out.
He's been back 3 games. In his third game, he took Verlander deep. He went 2 for 4 with a home run off of Justin Verlander. He definitely is back. So to me, that makes if Gleyber Torres is still there and Greg Bird is looking at a longer recovery or something, then yes, this makes sense. Pull Hanley Ramirez, rent him for however long you need him. But if Bird's back, he's the guy. So
and the key here in reading through some of the deals on all this, at 497 plate appearances, that $22 million option vests in. So that's kind of the thing that I think the Red Sox didn't obviously want to get sucked into, and obviously you said I don't think we can blame them. But yeah, man, it's something that we'll keep an eye on. I mean, hell, Jose Bautista got picked up by the Mets, so I mean, there's always going to be hope. I don't see it at the moment. I don't see any teams that are really contending or are making kind of a push on the bubble a little bit that bringing in Hanley would really do an immense amount of good. At least in this moment, I think I think when it gets near the deadline, someone's gonna find that happiness, but the deadline's a bit of a ways away, and obviously you don't want to be waiting that damn long beforehand, and having Joe Mauer playing first every day in Minnesota, still hitting 283. Only place you could really put Hanley would be in the DH because Logan Morrison makes the Rays look smart, still hitting below the Mendoza line at 196, and he's played in 45 games. So, the Twins could make an interesting spot for him.
Yeah.
Because they are still a team that is trying to find the magic that happened last year. And that bridges into the standings. Go ahead. I think we've already been kind of beating around the bush enough. Let's take it right there, man. And sitting in the American League East, everything's pretty much pat. The only interesting one, and we saw again, Sergio Romo made his 4th start of the year for an inning and 2/3. Didn't go as well this time. But the Rays are in 3rd place, playing 500 ball, dude, 26-26. Not what we expected when we had Dwayne Stats, the voice of the Rays, on the show a couple of months ago. But the Red Sox sit 2 games on top of the Yanks. Yanks have faltered a little bit, but, we're still, they're, 50 games into a 162-game year. There's plenty of room. 2 games back is chump change. They're going to play each other another 16 times. That'll get made up in a series. The Blue Jays are 4 games below 500, and the Orioles are apparently still in the American League East. Moving on. Honestly, the only thing that came out of Baltimore that has interested me this year was that ejection that I talked to you about the other day.
Right.
And it interested me because of the way and you know what? As we take a quick moment here, we haven't gone behind the mask in a little while. Let's go behind the mask real quick, Chris. And we mentioned this. So Jeremy Rehack, who is a first-year fill-in umpire, so a AAA umpire who has got his sleeve number, I believe 35 from the late great Wally Bell, passed away about 5-6 years ago. And Rehack called Trumbo on a check swing in the 9th inning. I think it was Trumbo's 2nd check swing, strike 3 of the game. And Trumbo got pretty hacked off at it. Kind of got into Rehack's grill a little bit. He tried to relax him. Trumbo wouldn't. Rehack tosses him. Out comes Buck Showalter. When I say the words "out comes Buck Showalter," where does your mind go?
Oh, someone's going to scream at somebody.
Yeah. Buck comes out, kind of gives a little elbow to Trumbo, pushes him out of the way, tried to kind of get in between them, puts his hand on the umpire, on his back. And if you watch the video, he mouths the words, "Walk with me, walk with me." Calm as he be. You see him say, "It was right. I saw it. I know it was. I saw it." And they have a calm conversation. Buck never yelled, never raised his voice. You could tell the tone was calm. Rehack's almost kind of waiting. Yeah, he was sitting on his head. Everything's calm. Yeah, you're good. I know. I just had to come out here. And the whole idea was basically just to get Trumbo away. So I thought it was a beautiful job of umpiring by a young guy and really veteran managing to come out there and get in between your player to prevent a suspension or a bigger fine, but to go ahead and give the umpire his due for doing his job. And as he makes the call, you can see the crew chief, Bill Miller, at first, who would have been the appellate umpire had Rehack chosen to appeal instead of making himself, nodding his head. So you get the affirmation of your partner at first. And it's one of those things that Buck comes out and he's just like, yeah, had you gone to first? It was really well done. One of those things that, if you get a chance, I'll try and put the video up on our Facebook page, Out of Left Field, Chris and Graham. And, of course, you can always find stuff on Twitter at OO Left Field. But it's worth a watch real quick. Just kind of watch Buck. You can see him mouth real fast, walk with me. It's kind of a neat dynamic between a manager and an umpire. To the Central we go. Twins, the aforementioned Twins, 5 games below 500, 22-27. Hard to believe they're actually sitting behind the Tigers in second. The Indians are 2 games above 500. Saw yesterday our buddy Adnan Virk had the call in Cleveland against the White Sox with Rich Sutcliffe. Man, The White Sox lost that game more than the Indians won it. Indians did not look great early on. The Royals at 18-36, and the White Sox are still in the American League Central. The AL West, the Astros are sitting right where we expect them to be. 35-20, leading the way. Who is not sitting where we expect them to be? The Mariners. They are 9-1. 9-1 in their last 10. Knock, for all of you who've been in college or in the military, that will be on the test later. 9-1 in their last 10. They are 33-20, a game behind the Astros. Second place right now in the West after the suspension of Robbie Cano. Really, really just surprising there. The LA Angels sitting just a 3.5 games behind the Mariners, the A's, and then the Rangers round out the bottom half of the West. The A's still sitting 28-26, a game behind the Angels. This is one of those moments, I've been saying it for a while. Fourth place in the AL West doesn't mean you're bad. Just means you're playing in a really, really good division this year in Major League Baseball. Chris, take us through the National League, please.
Well, National League East, as we've already discussed, Atlanta sitting on top of that division, but here come the Washington Nationals. Atlanta's at 31-22. The Washington Nationals also with 22 losses, only 30 wins by virtue of having played one less game. They are half a game back of Atlanta. This is where
Sergeant Murphy would say, train coming, crazies.
Yep. This is where we expected to see Washington. This is what we expected to see Washington start to do, creep up that National League East. They've passed Philadelphia to end up in second place. And realistically, with the talent that's on that team, they're still not performing up to our expectations. They need to be in control of that division.
I want to ask you real quick, because we mentioned off air, and we'll talk about him throughout the year. Juan Soto, the 19-year-old youngest kid in baseball right now, gets called up as an outfielder. Do you think the Nationals are regretting the Adam Eaton deal? I mean, you lose a couple of really good, obviously a really hard-throwing pitcher, a couple of different pieces to the White Sox, and Eaton has obviously, tore his knee up his first year there, and then again has been often injured. I mean, do you still think Adam Eaton has the potential to be a difference maker for that ball club if he can just stay healthy? Or did they kind of get, unfortunately, the short end of the stick out of that deal?
They did. I think they did get the short end of the stick. The unfortunate truth is that the Washington Nationals gave up some really great prospects to Chicago, and they got back a guy. Now, there's no way for them to have known that Eaton was going to get hurt as badly as he did. But fate, it turns out, gave them the short end of the stick. I think that at the time, Eaton was the right move. But they're stuck with him now.
I think, and mentioning that, again, this will be on the test in a little bit, but the team that made out like a bandit from two trades in Eaton and Sale should be playing a lot better than we have seen.
Right.
And we'll get to that here
a lot better
in a minute.
They certainly shouldn't be the worst team in baseball.
No. And just to go ahead and add an addendum on that, on May 11th, Adam Eaton was moved to the 60-day disabled list to have surgery on his left ankle.
Well, and that's one of those things. It's going to hurt.
And by the way, the Marlins are still in the National League East.
Right, yeah. The Metties are actually playing a game over 500. Hey, is this the beginnings of a comeback? Absolutely not.
Syndergaard goes to the DL 10 days. Again, it's a pitching staff. It's always going to be a big what if, unfortunately, that had such great possibilities, and we missed it.
The big what if with that pitching staff is how well would they be doing if Matt Harvey was still there?
If Matt Harvey was still there and was the Dark Knight that we saw 3-4 years ago pre-Tommy John surgery?
No, I mean Matt Harvey from the day that they traded him.
Oh, they would probably be a few games below 500.
That's exactly what I think. So good on them. Moving to the Central, Milwaukee, the Brewers. This is definitely going to be on the test. The Milwaukee Brewers sitting at the top of the National League Central, 8-2 in their last 10. Kicking
you
butt.
added an extra word in there, unfortunately.
Did I?
Yeah, take the Central out.
Oh, I'm
They're
sorry.
sitting on top of the
The
National
League. At 35-20,
35 being the Bravos.
35 being the most wins in the National League, only 2 games behind the team with the most wins in the American Leagues, and the Boston Red Sox are the best team in baseball. And you got to think you're having a pretty good season when you have a win-loss record that matches that of the Houston Astros, the defending world champions. They're on top of the Chicago Cubs. I think that the Milwaukee Brewers should be the favorites. You think the Milwaukee Brewers should be the favorites. I think we can agree on that sentiment. They just got to keep up exactly what they're doing. I think they're playing excellent baseball.
So thank you, Miami Marlins, for funding the third-place team in the Central, Marcell Ozuna to the Cardinals, also funding D. Gordon to the Mariners, Giancarlo Stanton to the Yankees, and Christian Yelich to the Brewers. We salute you for your assistance in this year's league.
The Brewers had a lot of – we said this at the beginning of the year when we were talking about – we were grading these teams on their offseason performances. The Brewers did a phenomenal job at picking up talent in the offseason, and that Yelich trade realistically is probably one of the things that's got them at 35-20 right now. Christian Yelich is a beast. He's a monster.
Yelich and Kane together. Who saw Matt Cain or Lorenzo Cain rather flipping from the Royals over to the Brewers. It was crazy.
I can tell you this: there's not going to be a whole lot of balls dropping in that outfield. Not with Cain and Yelich out there, 2 guys with incredible speed out in that outfield.
And it helps when you have Eric Thames on the I don't know why I said Thames. He's not English. Eric Thames on the 10-day DL. Obviously, you had that big power year last year, and now even with him out, you don't have to be too concerned because you pick up that extra bat, and Yelich really helps him out. So
right, Chi-Town sitting behind Milwaukee, actually 4.5 games behind Milwaukee, which is one of the bigger. The rift has gotten larger in the Central. I think it was just last week we were talking about that everybody was separated by a few games. Now there's as much as a 6-game lead on the Pittsburgh Pirates. St. Louis is 5 games back. Chicago's 4.5 games back. These are not the kind of differences that can be made up in a single meeting between these two teams like you have with Washington or with
Boston
and New York.
And this will be part of our top 5, bottom 3. A couple of these teams out of the Central. But I'll tell you this right now, and I understand that in the last 10, the Pirates are 2-8. Call me crazy, and we'll talk about the Cubs here in just a minute. If they don't get that pitching thing figured out, and Yu Darvish is on the DL, good riddance because his ERA I think is close to 5 or 6.
Yeah,
I'm not convinced the Cubs not only won't win the division, I'm not convinced the Cubs will finish second in the National League Central if they can't get that starting rotation figured out. Only one starter, that's John Lester, under a 3 ERA this year.
Hot take right now, my hot take on the National League Central.
The Reds are going to
win. If something doesn't happen in that starting rotation by the break, the Cubs miss the playoffs.
I don't think that's far-fetched at all. With the way the National League East is playing out and as tightly bunched right now, really as the West is looking, because the Diamondbacks have to find a way to get back up one of the mountains. I don't think that's a far-fetched prediction whatsoever.
In other news, they apparently still play baseball in Cincinnati, just not well. In Colorado.
Is that what they call it when they're playing there?
Stickball.
Okay. Okay.
In the West, Colorado is on top of that division, but they don't hold a iron-fisted lead. They're a game and a half up on the Arizona Diamondbacks, who, pay attention to this because it's going to be also on our test later, have lost 13 of their last 17 after that red hot start that they had at the beginning of this season. They are just crashing and burning at this point. Sort of an epic up down from a team that we thought was going to maintain a pretty level above 500 win-loss ratio.
Yeah, if I had to pick a Florida Georgia Line song to describe the Diamondbacks, I didn't think Up Down would have been the one I was going to choose to describe how they're looking this far into the year.
But in other news, the Los Angeles Dodgers apparently can play baseball. They are 8-2 in their last 10, and they are rocketing up the division leaderboard. They're only 3.5 games out, half a game ahead of the San Francisco Giants, who are just scrabbling and clawing and kicking and screaming, doing everything they can to put together wins. Still playing under 500 baseball, but only just 4 games under 500. Dodgers are only 3 games under 500. San Diego has 22 wins on the season, so that's something. The crazy thing about the West is we thought this was going to be the strongest division in the league. It looks like that is the lie detector test has determined that that's a lie.
Thank you, Maury.
The entire league is separated by, or the entire division is separated by 7.5 games, but none of those teams in that league were you to dismiss the division leader. None of the teams in that division will qualify as a wild card team right now.
It'll be interesting to see, and obviously when it finally happens, I'm sure we'll discuss it to a pretty hefty point. But Bumgarner's on the way back. Had a really successful start in Sacramento. Panic is going to be coming back soon. Cueto probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks. There are pieces coming back. I'm not sold that the Giants haven't kind of outrun their course with a good chunk of these players. But in the division the way that it is, if they can get themselves close, they have a core group of guys who have been to enough playoffs and World Series berths that if they're at least close to the possibility of making it, they have the right people in place to go ahead and make that final run. That takes us to our top 5, bottom 3. Top 5 teams of the last at least week and a half or so since we did our last show. My top 5 sit at the Milwaukee Brewers, the Boston Red Sox, the Seattle Mariners, the Astros. I get that your thing is, they're doing what they're supposed to do. Yes, they are, but what they're supposed to do is really freaking good. And the Dodgers, who are rocketing up the league, up their division. Yes, I know. Bottom 3 for me. I said it last week. I had a hard time. Putting a division leader in my bottom 3. Well, guess what? Diamondbacks ain't leading nothing right now, so they are in the bottom 3, along with the Pirates and the White Sox and the Orioles both hold the bottom position because they both are just that bad. The Orioles are just horrific this year. I'm not sure Buck Showalter will last. I'm not sure Buck Showalter will want to last with what's going to happen soon. Machado, I believe, will go. He should go by the break if they can get something for him. And the White Sox, like I said, the White Sox to me should be doing better than they are with the pieces that they have gotten. I watched them play yesterday, as I mentioned, against the Indians. Error after error, misplay after misplay, nonchalant, just poor olaying of the baseball. It's just look to be an undisciplined team, and Rick Renteria needs to get a handle on that because it is a team of very young players, and if you can't keep them focused and disciplined, they're never going to mature into a team that has a chance to be anything close to successful in a division that should be ripe for taking in the next 2 or 3 seasons.
I agree.
Thank you. Moving on.
We're pretty much pat on the bottom 3. My top 5, the Brewers, obviously, doing great things in the Central. I expect to see them continue to do great things in the Central. The Seattle Mariners, I'm right there with you. The Seattle Mariners are getting things done that I didn't think the Seattle Mariners were going to get done this year. They're not just playing over 500. They are 13 games above 500. They're playing solid baseball. This is from a team that we have seen be content with at or below 500 baseball for the last 20 years, with the exception of that 114 win season that they made an unceremonious exit from the playoffs after. Yeah. The Red Sox, obviously, we gotta give a nod to the Sox. They're the best team in baseball. You don't not put the best team in baseball in your top five. I think the Yankees. I love what the Astros are doing, but the Astros are doing exactly what I expect them to do. I don't expect the Yankees to be the team in the American League or the team in baseball that is still in single-digit losses both at home and on the road.
Well, I can tell you right now they are losing 5-3 to the Astros.
Well, that's a tough team to beat, man.
So, I hear your point, and I say
And then, of course, the Dodgers. The Dodgers are round out my top five, doing great, rocketing up the standings. It's actually good to see the Dodgers play good baseball because it's tough to watch a team with so much talent do so poorly. Unless you're me, who's a Giants fan, then it's fun. Anyway, moving on. Bottom three, I'm with you. White Sox, Baltimore are basically a wash.
Does the 8-2 run have anything to do with Justin Turner has trimmed the mane? The beard is there. Beard is full. Beard is luxurious. FYI, my brother-in-law's beard is returning. I know that would make you very happy because when that thing of majesty was gone, it was disheartening for us both. But yeah, there is no more long red salad coming off the back of Justin Turner. It's a nice tight cut with a hefty beard still on the front.
I mean, maybe change pace, change of scenery. It's possible. Baseball players are streaky and superstitious. And
superstitious.
Are we going to stay on that? Is that what we're going to do?
Maybe.
My number two on that list is going to be the Pirates. The White Sox and Baltimore are doing terrible. They're the worst two teams in the league. White Sox are the worst team in the league. They're one game back of Baltimore Orioles, who, for all intents and purposes, have no reason to be at the bottom of that league, that division. Then there's the Pirates. The Pirates are just playing badly, but I expect to see that turn around as we move forward. Hopefully, Ken coming back is going to be a big boost for them. He can come back and help them get some more wins. I would like to see the Pirates finish in a wild card slot. In the way the Central looks, that's going to be rough. And then, of course, the way Atlanta's playing, with Atlanta and Washington battling out for that top spot in the East, it's going to be tough. But I'd like to see them push for a wild card slot coming on the end of the year. The Diamondbacks, if the Diamondbacks don't win their division, they are not going to the playoffs, period. End of discussion. I do not see two teams in the West going to the playoffs this year.
Agreed. And I want to apologize, by the way, for deviating from my clear path to interfere with your read right there about the top five bottom three.
That's okay.
Is that a good segue right there? Did I over umpire the segue?
No.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about the illegal slide that Anthony Rizzo committed, who deviated from his path and interfered with the catcher.
Well,
I feel kind of like in that moment right there, I felt kind of like Dana Carvey as Garth in Wayne's World.
But
kind of have a little lip curl. I'm like, yeah.
To be fair, it was unclear whether you had over umpired that situation, that segue. Just like it was unclear to the umpires and the review crew whether or not that should have been interference. Major League Baseball says yes. The review guys say no. Who do we trust? Well, you got to watch the tape.
To me, it's pretty blatant. I understand the whole idea is, as long as you can reach, as long as, you can reach the bag when you make your slide. That's the whole idea of the force play slide rule at second. But you can clearly see that the way that, Rizzo is running basically with the line bisecting his body. Okay. He's, 1 foot in fair, 1 foot in foul, making a direct line towards those batters' boxes in the plate. Clearly moves a good foot, maybe 2 feet away from that line, up into fair territory as Diaz had made the move to go ahead and try and get the double play, and he slides directly into his feet. Now, there's a difference here, and I want to make this evident. I want to be as clear as I can. The slide was illegal, not dirty.
Right.
Massive difference. Illegal by the rule, a clean play. It's a heady baseball. 10 years ago would have been a great play. Hey, awesome job, broke it up. He's got a couple more runs to score on the errant throw. That's not the way the game is being played for a reason. He didn't go spikes up. He didn't go high into the leg. He went low into the feet and the ankles. I'm sure it hurt like hell, but it was a clean slide.
And he didn't blow up the catcher.
Right. Yes. But no, it is one of those things, you can tell he deviated from his path to purposely make contact with the catcher and have an effect on the throw. And that violates the bona fide slide rule, the force plus slide rule, whatever, however you want to call it. The odd thing here is that, so you have the play, they go, they talk it over, they go to review. The umpires went ahead and initiated their own review, which apparently made Joe Madden incensed, and he was kind of hollering as to why. But okay, they had their review, they call him safe, then Hurdle gets run, which you knew was going to happen, and I don't blame Clint Hurdle for it. But weirdly enough, at the same time that Hurdle is arguing with Mark Carlson, who is the acting crew chief of the day, you've got Joe Madden chewing on Pat Hoberg and Bill Welke's ear, and I don't know why, because everything went his way. It was weird. I mean, because you didn't get a good look, you couldn't really read his lips, but there was nothing you could really see that made you go, okay, Joe, why are you complaining? I mean, it was weird, but no, it was a botched play. One of those things that, I mean, I don't really, just looking at it, I was like, yeah, I mean, he, because he slides. Here was more, I guess, the issue I found comes in. When he slid in feet first through the catcher, then had to turn his body to reach for the plate. It wasn't a slide to reach for the plate. It was a slide through the catcher, make contact, affect the play, and then as an afterthought, reach for the plate to go ahead and try and prevent the issue. That's where I think everyone saw, is that, man, not only did he move to his left, but his primary goal was hitting Diaz, and then he went and reached for the dish.
Right. But
I see you thinking, and now obviously we talked off air. I'm curious, your mind is the player in you and the manager in you, I can see now, is beginning to think. So
here's my issue.
Looks like you're taking the Rizzo, like you're seeing the Rizzo side, and I'm curious.
I see the Rizzo side because Rizzo doesn't have to reach for the plate. Rizzo's out.
Right.
That's a forced play at home. Rizzo's out. Who cares if he returns to reach for the plate? Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's doing that, but he's probably just doing that to just get the feet down, right? Did he deviate inside? Yes. Could he have slid to the outside instead of the inside? Yes. Did he need to slide? He was out by 6 steps. So realistically,
why is a player who is no longer on, part of the field of play making contact with a catcher when he clearly did not need to make contact?
It was not a close play. He was out legitimately. He was out. I'm looking at it now. He was out by
He was probably four to 5 feet still up the third base line prior to hitting the dirt circle when Diaz received the ball.
Yes.
So at least three or four steps easily. One of those he could have easily peeled off.
He's one step in front of the circle as the ball is coming into the glove. He's definitely no longer a part of the field of play as he begins the slide. And he knows that.
Yeah. My only thing I will tell you with that I see, and I'm as we speak, I'm pulling the video up now because I want to look at it again as I say this. But the one thing that you have to be concerned of, and a guy who's really rushing it, looks like maybe 3 steps shy. Let's see, cat one. Yeah, he was 2 steps and a slide. What he has to be cognizant of as the runner is the possibility here, though, that that Diaz could have dropped the ball. And had Diaz dropped the ball, now the question is, did he drop it on the transfer or did he not have control? And a slide by Rizzo can make sure that if he's close to bobbling it without control, the ball comes loose and he can score the run. So I think this is one of those things that watching the video as it happens, it's a lot faster and closer than it would. The slide I understand. I understand why he went ahead and slipped the plate. There's a possibility of still getting the run if Diaz made an error in receiving the throw. But the fact that they didn't call the interference for him deviating his path is still a blatant missed call by that crew.
Here's the problem, because this is the problem that I see that, and this is just from if I'm Diaz, this is what I'm going to say about what you're saying right now.
Sure.
You're watching my screen right now, right?
I see it. Yes, sir.
There is a clear catch and a clean transfer at this moment. He has not yet begun his slide. He won't begin his slide for another step. And he's already turning to throw, clearly received and transferred the ball. Then he begins the slide, and then there's the takeout. Arm is already back to fire.
I'll ask you this as a former player. Are you watching for that? Or is your thought, I'm going to get to the plate, I'm going to try and, if there's, I mean, to me.
No, as a former player who played at a time when I would have been expected to break up that throw, I do exactly what Rizzo does.
I'm not asking the expert of breaking it up. I'm saying that what your point is that, hey, there's clear transfer, there's clear transition, but are you, as the runner, are you even looking to see if he has made that transfer of the ball from glove to hand to make the throw, or are you just running?
Absolutely, because I'm looking to see if he's going to drop that ball. I'm watching the ball. Okay. If he catches that ball and it comes out of his glove, but it doesn't come out of his glove here on the transfer, clearly on the transfer, yeah, I'm going to slide into that bag. But the catch had been made, the out had been made, the transfer had been made, and then he slid. Okay. That is a clear attempt to break up a play. And again, as a ball player, I'm not going to fault Rizzo for that. I'd have done something like that. But right. I don't know that I would have done it 3 steps in front of the plate.
Well, here's where I'll go to that, and I'm going to agree with you here. If Diaz was,
and when I say 3 steps in front of the plate, I mean 3 steps towards the mound. He clearly went inside.
Right. He was in fair territory.
Right.
But if Diaz is sitting right near the plate, maybe still has his foot on, or he's within a foot or two of that plate,
I'm sliding right through him.
I see the same play. I got nothing. Yep, I would have absolutely zero issue. And again, like I said, illegal.
Him standing on the plate, just like me standing on the bag at first base, him standing on the plate, realistically, if I'm going into a slide, that's still my running lane.
Right. You still have a right to the bag at this point. So yeah, it's the gray area there is really, I mean, we're splitting hairs here on the gray area, which is fun. It's the beauty of the show. But I think at the end of the day, we both sit in agreement. I mean, we're not going to argue just for the sake of splitting hairs because, let's be honest, neither of us have that many hairs to split. We need as many as we can for, everyday use.
Wait a minute. If we split them, does it look like more hairs?
We could try, but I think at some point you just look and go, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. Something ain't right.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, let's just call it what it is. We agree. The play was legal, or I'm sorry, the slide was clean. The play was illegal. A double play should have been called, and the runners returned for interference. It was missed. It is missed. We won't hear anything. I would be interested to hear a statement from Carlson and Bill Welke, two of the senior members on that crew. But good for, at some point, good for MLB for saying, hey, look, yeah, there was this. It was the biggest play of the day. There was this issue. At some point, you still want a little bit of accountability. So hats off to Major League Baseball. Now, have to go back on and we turn around and just say good riddance to Wellington Castillo. White Sox, as you said, appear to be a dumpster fire. And in the middle of that, Wellington Castillo has been hit with an 80-game PED suspension a week and a half following the positive, not following the test, but following the news that Robinson Cano, his appeal was denied and he was going to be suspended as well for PEDs. You remember Castillo, I believe, had a short time with the Orioles after Wieters went to Washington, which good riddance to him because he has been terrible in Washington. Great job. I mean, that's some really, good fortune telling by the Orioles front office. But Castillo, a 2-year, $15 million contract, and he will lose about half of his $7.25 million this year. I don't want to say to his credit because there really is nothing to be credited. But Castillo at least had the intestinal fortitude to use one of our favorite Army isms, if you will, to at least take some sort of personal responsibility for the failed test. So it's really, it's rough. It stinks.
Well,
to see it again, but I mean, unfortunately, it's one of those things that it's still going to happen.
What really stinks about it is that the guy's taking PEDs and it's not helping.
Yeah.
It sucks to get suspended 80 games in a season where you're hitting 267 and slugging 466.
What I honestly wonder is, it makes me wonder, are they for his, are they for his lower body, hips, knees, things that a catcher is going to break down faster than your average play? I really do. I mean, because we always think PEDs is being there for power and pop. A lot of times it's for recovery. Remember when Ray Lewis won the Super Bowl? Well, actually, yes, I'm sure you do. I'm sorry. I apologize for that reference. I just realized.
Which time? The time that they beat the 49ers or the time that he murdered someone afterwards?
Yeah, the second one. And as I said that, I realized who they played, and I'm like, oh, I feel bad now. But remember, he was accused of using deer antler spray on his torn, I think, tricep.
Right.
Which is a prohibited substance because it helps it heal faster. And I'm like, it helps it, so I think that's the one thing that I think we always have that expectation that it is going to be for power. A lot of times it's just for recovery.
Yeah. And where do you draw the line, though? You have to ban these substances because they can give an unfair advantage. But the reality of the situation is that if you or I had an injury or a soreness issue and we went to a doctor, they would give us probably a steroidal medication to help us heal from that injury. And we're asking these guys to play 162 games a year and sometimes 13, 15, 17 games in a row of what may not be the most physically demanding sport, but is a grinding sport. And not offering them an opportunity.
But to go from 0 to 60, just to get on your horse, move, and then weight, especially with the strikeout pitcher, like a Verlander, who
that's
is
one of
just
the hard things.
Yeah.
Is because you can't spend your whole time in the dugout or whole time, standing out in the outfield, staying loose and staying stretched and doing all that. And then you get in the box and you hit one down the line, you got to run. Right. And to be asked to sprint after doing nothing for 2 innings, it's a lot to ask of your lower body. It's a lot to ask of your lungs and your heart and your but especially
your and it's someone who's had
hamstrings,
surgery from the military. I mean, and knowing what the obliques, how important they are to a lot of the things that we both had to do just for our MOS. I mean, hey, yeah, lift this can of ammunition. Well, those damn things are heavy. I mean, your core, your obliques, I mean, those things, you realize how much use you have to, put into them to get your daily tasks done. And the same thing with these guys.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not saying that Wellington Castillo is right for having used performance-enhancing drugs. Obviously, you know how I feel about PEDs. But at some point, there has to be a line in the sand saying, okay, this is we need to offer them some opportunity to come back, to have an opportunity to be able to come back from injury in a reasonable amount of time.
Because how often do we see players that, and I'll bring up your Niners, Alex Smith, in that year gets hurt, doesn't come back fast enough. The whole idea is, you don't lose your job to injury. BS. Yeah, you do. Right. I mean, if you're not showing and some new guy comes up, I mean, hey, he's newer, he smells better, he got kind of that new car smell. We're going for a ride, man, and we're just going to put you in the garage for a bit, and finally we're going to sell you off. We'll give all the teams the Carfax. It's cool.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, unless you're the San Diego Padres, you do give all the teams the Carfax.
Well played, sir. That right there is the way to end the show. Guys, another fun week. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. I apologize for the fantasy baseball talk. Enjoy it some more next week when you come back. I'm sure Chris will tell us how he's now 8-1 or 2. But we will be sure to keep updated. Also, keep your eyes out in the next, hopefully this week. That is a plan as Chris, though, is moving into his new house, first-time homeowner. So congrats to him. I know we mentioned it a couple shows ago, but he's finally getting everything set for the move. Actually, I think he's in the middle of the move. But we are going to do our best to go ahead and get out our power rankings 1 through 30 for the month at the end of May, beginning of June. So we'll give you our power rankings there. Kind of take it along with Tim Farmer on View from the Mezzanine at View Mezzanine on Twitter. Be sure to check out thegruelingtruth.net. Always give a like and check out our stuff. Thank you all who keep liking the page. We're growing. It's been a fun 2 years. I think we need to give Adnan a call because he normally is it's kind of our birthday gift. Comes on the show, hangs out with us a little bit, especially with Deadpool out and then Solo. I know you were a big fan. Reviews are mixed. Be fun to have him on and talk a little bit. But either way, guys, thank you all so much for making this a fun 2 years for us.
You have to see it first.
I will.
Because I'm not going to be able to stop myself from talking about the person that I am not supposed to talk about.
But in all seriousness, in a moment of realness here to you guys, you've really, I don't want to say changed our lives. It's our lives are the same. We enjoy the podcast, but you've given us a chance to kind of get involved in baseball in a way we haven't before. Talk to people, meet people we haven't before, and able to bring hopefully a view of the game that is different from what you've been accustomed to, especially hopefully from the umpire's perspective. I know it's changed a bit of the way that Chris looks at the game, which and I think it's kind of cool that you appreciate that. And we hope it changes the way that you guys do as well. It's why we do what we do. It's why we enjoy doing what we do. So, again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us every week and coming back.
And to be fair, and since we're gonna get real, prior to this, here we go. Prior to this, we've said this several times on the show that prior to this whole crazy thing coming about, Graham and I hadn't talked in a while, and this has really strengthened our friendship back to what it was when we were in the military, and that's kind of an important thing to us. So And we would only be continuing to do it if we had an audience. And so we appreciate you guys for that.
I have to just ask briefly as she walks in the door, do you think our wives are as appreciative of that as we are?
Oh, no, they friggin' hate it. They friggin' hate it.
All right, guys. For all of us here at the Grilling Truth Network, for Chris, I'm Graham. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. We'll see you back here next week on Out of Left Field.